We may be live, so don't drop anything that was going to offend anybody. But there we go. There we go. It worked. It worked. We are live. Oh my goodness. All right. So first off, welcome. It is Monday night. We are back here, and we are ready to have a great evening, a great talk. Oh, I knew that was going to happen. I knew my YouTube video started playing. I was like, it's so loud and annoying. But anyway, very much want to thank everybody for taking time to join us tonight. First off, I gotta drop a little bit of a mention. We got some sponsors on tonight's show that without them, we just really would not be able to put this together. There's a lot of costs behind this, stuff that I don't really even fully understand. But DJ Event Planner, you guys, trust me. Yes, like thumbs up. I think all of us use it in some form or fashion. There's a lot of DJs out there that use it for everything from simple automation to full on, like almost running their business for them type of thing, and just about everything in between. So check out DJ Event Planner. Tell them that you heard about them here, heard about them from us, and that'd be even better. So thank you very much, djeventplanner.com. But there's also some other sponsors that are down below as well. So if you get a chance, obviously don't do it right this second, open them, save them, right? But then after the show, go check out those other links. And again, tell them that you heard about them here, because really, again, without them, this would be like us, talking, and I don't know what we would do, but it'd be weird. Anyway, so on tonight's show, I've got some people that are awesome enough to join with me, which I'm so very thankful for. John was not able to be here, so I said, hey, John, how about this topic? And he said, okay, who are you going to talk to? And I said, well, let's think about some guys who have been around for a little bit, enough to know that what to do in this situation. I'm not calling you old, Mitch. I'm older than you are. What I'm saying is that you are experienced enough to have thought this through. So tonight's topic all stemmed from what happened last Monday during the show. Now, some of you may be aware, if you're not, you've been hiding under a rock, but Damar Hamlin of the Buffalo Bills, the safety, was in a collision with somebody, and on the field went into cardiac arrest. And like for the next hour, you had announcers trying to figure out what on earth they're going to talk about, how they're going to handle this with some somber attitude, and yet get the answers out to everybody that's wondering, is he okay? And if he is, what's going to happen next? And so there was a lot of just confusion, a lot of question marks throughout the night. And we're not going to talk necessarily about how at the NFL or how the Bengals or the Buffalo Bills, how they handled it that moment, but rather that got us thinking, do you have a plan for you? In your events, as you are performing, as you are there at your event, something happens. How are you going to handle it? So Mitch Taylor, Dave Stevenson, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. So I encourage you to drop your comments into the chat, as you're going. I'm keeping an eye on them. I will be honest, tonight is probably going to be a little bit more of a somber attitude because just straight up, this is the topic that we're talking about. So as we start, kind of the way, and I let them in, what I would like to do is start with the progression of, let's talk about, this is a couple days before. So it's not as drastic as the moment, but let's assume for a second, it's the week leading up, and we've got a key member of the wedding party. And they go into some situation where they're not going to be with them. They're not going to be at the wedding. What is your first reach out? You find out about this, whether through social media or whether the client reaches out to you and tells you, what's your first gut instinct to do? Who would like to start?
My first instinct is to reach out and offer, see if there's something that we can do. Do they need a liver transplant, or they need like blood, or things like that, and post it. I mean, a lot of DJs have a big social media presence. Get out there and try and help. If it's someone that passed away, you offer your condolences and try and just be as patient and kind. That's the key, is, the kindness out there. Put it out and let them know that, listen, just let me know if there's anything I can do, if you need to, reschedule this, or, if you're changing anything, do you want us to make any special announcements or a song or something like that for the event? It's just being that caring person, I think, carries, and not just person, human. It's our nature to feel empathy for others and to want to help. And I think that's a key thing, that when you're dealing with customers and you get that news, the shock sets in on you, because you're like, oh my God, are they going to cancel this event and want their money back? Prime example. I mean, we had COVID, back during COVID. I mean, there were customers that were really sick that were in the hospital that, I didn't know about till the week before their event, because, I'm chasing after them to get paperwork, and come to find out that, they're in the hospital. So it's reaching out and just making sure that, what can you do, and be a person that listens. It's amazing.
Yeah, I agree with Dave. 4 words for me, and it really sums up what Dave said too. Lead with your heart. If you lead with your heart and are human first, as Dave said earlier too, if you lead with your heart, then everything else will solve itself. If you look at it as a business transaction alone, then you might get raked over the coals, but if you lead with your heart and take your cues from what your client wants and wishes, then that's going to be helpful. I had a bride actually during COVID come down with COVID the Monday before her wedding on Saturday. And so the whole wedding was postponed because the bride's got COVID. I mean, I've always made the joke, and I even had this conversation with couples in the past. It's like, and I've had this, a groom who is completely intoxicated and hammered and not able to do anything all night. You can get by without that if you had to, right? You lose a bride, she's center spoke of the wheel. Forget about it. You know what I mean? You're done. And not that it doesn't take two to marry, of course it does, right? But still, it's again, so we just pushed that one to the spring and we did the wedding, but yeah, lead with your heart and know what your client wants to do. Obviously be a resource for them as well, because they've never been through this before. You more than likely have had maybe something similar, or maybe you watched this Jockey News with Dan Carpenter and Dave and myself, and we're able to glean some knowledge of how to handle this, and so that's something you can do, is lean on your brothers and sisters in the industry and reach out, get some advice. How would you handle this? That would be my recommendation. Lead with your heart.
And I think one of the things that you're noticing, both of you saying that, I think is going to be key. When this happens, a lot of times the comments you see on Facebook is, should I refund the money? Like that almost seems like that's the first thing that immediately comes out of somebody's mouth. And yet what you'll notice from both of these gentlemen as they were talking, it was this idea about reaching out as a person, making that connection, and I think for a lot of us, that have spent any time trying to better ourselves, we've recognized that the best way that we create our business and create a business that continues to grow is that we are kind to the people that are out there, and we get to know them, and we get to understand who they are and the things that they like and the things that they want. And so to have, when something like this happens, I'm not saying the money topic doesn't have to come up at some point, but in the midst of what's going on, that's not the time. They're not going to be worried about that in that moment. somebody passes, they might be worried. Like if it's one of the people that is, you know, one of your couple that's getting married, that's the one that passes, they might be considering or worried about money in that moment, only from the standpoint of they may have suddenly a lot of bills they didn't think about. And so money becomes the forefront. But in the average situation, they're more distraught about what's going on in the situation they're in than anything else. So,
Well, and you can't take the money with you. So, you know, when you're thinking about your business, yes, it's great, and everybody needs to have a plan, and you need to look out for yourself and your family and your business, but you also need to be human. You know, you need to have compassion for others. You know, it's not, nobody's at the same level in life as you. There's going to be people that are always better. There's going to be people that are always worse, you know, but you just looking out for yourself is great for you, but you know, it affects other people around you. And, you know, putting out that positivity in just a few words to someone to show that, hey, I'm human too, you know, it will come back to you. I mean, I believe in karma. What you put out, you know, will come back to you. And that's a very big thing that I found, that whether it works or not, I believe it does, because I've met some wonderful people that, I mean, I've been DJing for almost 38 years now. And, you know, I've got couples that I've done, the grandparents, the kid, you know, the parents, and now some of the kids. So, you know, you build that kind of, you know, trust with a family, or, you know, where you're doing the brothers and the sisters and the cousins, and, you know, and you could become part of their family. And, you know, I get letters, I get Christmas cards, I get, you know, phone calls. I see, you know, I'm Facebook friends with a lot of past customers, and, you know, seeing their kids being born, and, you know, it's a business, yes, but you know what? It doesn't take anything to send them a message saying, "Hey, congratulations," or, "Hey, I'm sorry, you know, for your loss." You know, it's people when they don't expect it, that one single act of kindness can change a person's whole perspective. They may have been having a horrible day, and you just out of the blue coming out of sending them a message saying, "Hey, you know, I hope you're having a good day." You know, just out of the blue, don't expect anything, just, you know, drop it out there. That may change their whole perspective from, you know, a day that they were having, you know, struggling and things like that, to, you know, a day that might be really good for them. So that's how I look at things.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm reminded of several things, honestly, things I've had over the years. I'm reminded of one couple specifically. I had done two of their other siblings' weddings, and the groom comes down with cancer, and they need to postpone. And all the other event pros were very kind and considerate about it, willing to work with them on payment plans or postponements or whatever the situation was, right? The one that wasn't, ironically, the venue. And they remembered. And I ended up performing for that couple for their wedding. And they were super appreciative of me being able to work with them. And they didn't have their wedding at that venue. And it was after he went into remission, they were able to do that. And she's actually a photographer in the area now. Ironically enough, she got into photography as a photographer in the area, and who gets referrals. So it does come back around. I just had this, we're talking about the money side of things too, right? I'm very much business focused. And I don't think you succeed in business. Tailored Weddings, my company, is now entering its 21st year of business. So you don't get successful and have a longevity in that side of things unless you're doing something right. However, I can count on one hand the number of times this has happened and have fingers, plural, left over, where I've had one of the couple pass away before the wedding. And in both instances, one happened at the company I work for in Metro Detroit, and one literally just happened to me. I haven't had it happen since. It literally just happened for a wedding we were supposed to do on May 6th of this coming year. The groom passed away, and I refunded all of the money, every penny. In that situation, I just, no, my contract doesn't tell me I can or should. There's not a clause in there for death of one of the signing, people in the contract. But it's about, again, have a heart. I mean, they're grieving. And I don't know what every other event pro did, nor do I need to know or care what every other event pro did. I stroked the check and gave them back all their money.
And I think one of the things you'll also see is there's a lot of people, like if you throw this out on Facebook, you're going to have a ton of people that are going to say everything under the sun of how you should handle this. But what it comes down to is exactly as everybody's been saying here is, you got to do what's going to be best for the karma, for who for who you are and the type of person that you want to be known as. And again, whether your contract says it or not, I would assume, and there's three of us here. Between the three of us, we're upper between 50 and 100 years of service, and we probably all have had, maybe at most a handful among us where this situation has happened. So this is not something that's going to be drastic, right? This is not something that we have to worry about happening every week.
No.
These are unusual circumstances, and that's how this should be thought of and recognize that, there's a good way and a bad way. So I want to shift gears a little bit here. I want to shift now. So that's leading up to it. And we talked about both, whether it's like a member of the wedding party and Mitch, you brought also into the couple itself, this, leading in. Let's talk day of. We get word that overnight or that morning, something drastic happens. We won't go quite to the extent of death here, but something drastic happens to the point that somebody's definitely not able to come due to illness, injury, sickness. Something happened, right? But it's the morning of, and let's start with one of the members of the wedding party. So we'll leave the parents out of it for a moment.
Sure.
It's a groomsman, it's a bridesmaid. Do you do anything different than you did in the days leading into the week leading up if it happens the morning of?
I'll start first, I guess. For me, again, it is lead with your heart and take the cues from the couple. And I'm chuckling because I remember another wedding that I did years ago. The best man no-showed. But he no-showed because he ended up not supporting the marriage and didn't want to go through with it all. And ironically enough, he was right because they divorced shortly thereafter. So a little bit of humor there. I know we're trying to be more somber. Sorry, Dan.
That's all right. That's a humorous moment. It's not like something happened to him.
No, nothing actually happened. I just remember him not, all of a sudden it was like, he's not going to be here. What? Like, we had a speech plan. We had like the whole thing, right? But yeah, you just go with the flow and take your cues from your client, especially if it's not one of them. I've had someone, a bride or a groom, tell me their parent isn't, all of a sudden their parents are not showing up. Okay. I don't necessarily need to know the reason unless they confide in me, but you just take your cues from the client and move on. Go, that's what I do in that situation.
The one thing that I think that makes this a little bit different, and the one thing that I think as performers we have to keep in mind is that this very, with the wedding party, potentially, it's a question mark, but if we go into the parent aspect, this becomes the elephant in the room.
Can
Right?
be.
Yeah, exactly. So what are some things that you, or what conversations do you have with a couple that helps with that taking the cue? Like, what do you just flat out ask them, or what do you do?
The first thing, and then I'll let Dave go. The first thing I always ask in planning meetings is, are there any sensitive subjects or situations we should know about? Such as parents divorced, don't get along. I've got bridal party drama. I've got, my people in the wedding party used to date each other, so we can't put them together, or, whatever the situation is. My dad's an alcoholic. Oh, I've had that one, and I don't want him to get a microphone. And all of a sudden, somehow he does that night. And how do you handle it? And, all those situations, right? So if we're being entrusted to represent our couples properly on a microphone, we need to know all the dynamics at play, because you have all the dynamics at play. And now let's add alcohol. It's one of those things where I want to know what we're walking into and prepare our team for what they're walking into, so that we can do our best to represent our couples properly on a microphone and know the dynamics of what exists in the room.
So yeah, with that, Mitch, great point. So that, because we kind of control the way the evening goes. I mean, sometimes you're working with a planner, or, the maitre d' or whatnot, for the venues. But for the most part, we control the night, when things are happening. And like Mitch said, ask up front, don't be afraid to ask. And a lot of times you'll get couples that'll let you know, hey, we got this dynamic going on, and you got to be careful. You got to be careful how you say things. I've had it where, they've had pets recently pass away, or, an ex is actually going to be at the wedding, and you just kind of, and that's why, like, none of my guys that I work with, we don't drink at events, because you need to stay sharp. You need to, and I know that's a touchy subject, because I've seen many a posts, and you get some kickback on that. But you've got to be on your game the entire night. Whether it's the mixing, keeping an eye on what's going on in the room. Back when I used to do clubs, I mean, we were up in a booth and we were up above the crowd, and how many nights would you see a fight start to break out or something, and you get a hold of the bouncer, or bring something up and shut things down. You've got to kind of be, on that, and be the gatekeeper, because that's what you're there to make sure that your guests, and that, whether it be a Sweet 16 or a wedding or whatever type of event, you've got to make sure the safety of everybody there is kind of taken into effect. If you see somebody that's, had a little bit too much to drink, and, is kind of after, a bridesmaid or something, don't be afraid to mention something to the bride and groom, or one of the groomsmen, and say, hey, you might want to kind of keep an eye on this. It's you're the one, because you have the perfect vantage point, for the evening. So that's
who your POC is ahead of time too.
Yep.
Crucial.
Yep. Very key.
Yeah, I think you hit on something that wasn't even a plan. Both of you did, but with that last piece, some of you are like, some people might be like listening, like, what do you mean I had the vantage point? What do you mean like I'm the one who's gonna be able to think about it? What do we do when we play a track and we want to know if it's working or not? We're people watching, like the whole time we're watching what's going on in front of us. And you know, your photographer is going around and they're looking through a lens or they're looking at their screen on a small group as they're trying to get this perfect piece set up. You know, your videographer might be doing something similar. You know, if you have a venue that has a maitre d', maybe you've got some extra help, you know, keeping an eye on things, but otherwise you're the one who's observing it all, you know, because you're people watching.
But again, so we're talking about the venue, right? The venues is done as of after dinner, pretty much, right? They may have staff lingering around, right? But the reality is, and especially if you're working small market like I am,
Mhm.
you're it. You're it. And
Yeah.
sometimes you're the only sober person in the room.
Yeah.
So now how does that affect things, you know? And I can't stress enough, being able to think on your feet, being able to, as these gentlemen have said, you know, observe the room. You know, if you've been doing this for any length of time, you can see stuff go down before it goes down. You know, if you're intent and people watching and observant, you're going to see things like, oh, that guy just looked at that guy because he was over by his girl, and you know what I mean.
Mhm.
Things like that can happen. A fight can break out, as Dave said, which yeah, witnessed I don't know how many times. You know,
Listen,
red,
I've seen things that can't be unseen in my years.
red blood in a white dress is never a good idea.
So as we transition a little bit here towards the next one, and this really becomes kind of the granddaddy of it all, and I think kind of the main point of where I wanted to get with tonight, which is we're at the event and things are going great. Ceremony was beautiful. We won't even talk about if something happened at the ceremony, which I think is another topic, because how many of us are doing outdoor weddings in the sun with possible heat issues and elderly, like, so we might even be able to wrap that in together. But let's assume for a second everything's going great and somebody goes down, and we're not talking somebody slipped or somebody passed out because they had a little too much to drink, but somebody goes down in a Damar Hamlin type of situation. First off, let's just go with this. Have you had that happen? Can you walk us through kind of a shortened version of what happened and what you did in that moment? Dave, why don't we start
So
with you? Because I know you and I already talked that this has happened.
I have had this happen. So I had a full dance floor dancing, and I believe it was an uncle that just all of a sudden dropped to the floor. No signs, no anything. Um, you know, it was later in the evening, so people were kind of, and this harkens back to being on top of your game and seeing what happened. Nobody caught it for a few seconds. I fortunately did. I have had, you know, CPR training and things of that nature. Now, this was before venues carried AED units and things like that, but I saw it. I, you know, luckily the music was going. I got out from behind my system, ran over, you know, was asking if he's okay. He was unresponsive. So I, you know, checked for a pulse, checked for breathing, didn't see anything. So right away, I started doing CPR. And, you know, I yelled out in the audience, someone called 911. And luckily, you know, there were, I think I heard from the paramedic that arrived that they had literally like 50 calls to 911. So people were, you know, not panicked enough that they didn't know what to do, that they actually, you know, and I did CPR, continued till the paramedics got there. I wouldn't say it was probably close to 20 minutes. And they got there, they had the little paddle, you know, things like the AED. They put it on his chest and shocked him, and he had rhythm. So, you know, I just did what came natural to me. I was surprised that I was thankful that I had that training. I was hopeful that I would never have to use that training. But when it came to that time that something happened, I was thankful that I had that training, you know. And when they got him to the hospital, I think he was there for a couple days, and they released him. You know, I got a really nice thank you card from him. The bride and groom left me a wonderful review for their wedding. It said something as to, you know, some DJs kill it at an event. This one saved it at an event. So, you know, they were playing on it, but it's just a matter of being on your toes and keeping an eye on what's happening. I've had weddings. I had a wedding where the bride passed out and the groom and his brother got in a fist fight, and it actually made international news. You know, and they wound up taking the bride to the hospital, and it was quite chaotic. You know, so I've had a few events where, you know, medical and police have arrived on scene, and it's just, you just do what you can.
So let's go back to the first one with the uncle situation, because I think for the people that are not in the know or who have not been there, I think some of the instant, and at least for me, some of the initial thoughts that kind of run through the mind is, you know, did you immediately just kill the music to run over? Did you just let it keep playing? You know, and obviously you told us you vacated your spot, but where were some of those pieces to it?
So I let the music play. You know, I had, believe it or not, it was on auto mix. So for those of you who, you know, don't believe in it, sometimes it is helpful. But, you know, I just lowered the music and went over and did my thing. You know, I think I only had like 2 or 3 songs. But believe it or not, one of the songs that I had playing was "Staying Alive" by the Bee Gees, which was kind of ironic at the time. But, you know, in my class my CPR class, that's the song that they want you to kind of in your head keep pace to. And if I would have just put that on loop and done it, you know. But yeah, it was once the music stopped, I was still doing my thing, and people were, you know, coming over and wanting to help. And I said, you know, do you have any type of training? They're like, no, I have no idea. You know, so if I got tired, I was explaining what I'm doing, you know, so they could keep going. But I had such an adrenaline rush that, you know, I was able to, you know, keep it going. And people were just, I mean, you had people, you could hear like people in the background crying, and, you know, you just got to focus on that person at that time. You know, it wasn't about, I tuned everything else out, and I was just focused on this person that is right here, and doing everything I can to, you know, till the paramedics arrived. And then I sat in a chair, and like, I was just kind of like, oh my God, what just happened? And, you know, the paramedics, it was nice because the paramedics said to me that him making it was probably due to me having, you know, doing the CPR as quickly as I did. So I'm not touting my own horn. I'm just saying that if you can take a CPR class, please, please, please take a class. You know, now with this DeMar stuff that's going on, I found out that there's actually agencies or groups out there that help fund AED units at like a lower cost. And I've decided that one of my purchases this year is I'm going to probably have one of those in my spare box. If a venue doesn't have one, you know, because of the experience that I had, you know, I don't want that to ever happen to someone. You know, in my head, I'm thinking, you know, what if this was my dad or my uncle?
Mhm.
And that was the one thing that, you know, it's just really difficult. It's really difficult. I mean, you think, and then you're thankful, you know, for, it makes you think that, okay, I'm glad I've got my extended family. You know, I'm lucky enough, and lucky enough they were able to keep theirs too that night. So,
What about you? Have you had anybody go down in that type of situation?
Not in that exact situation. I've had a bride been completely down for roughly an hour because of alcohol, frankly. It was a horrible occurrence. We are trying to do our best to get her functioning again. She was not functioning for a solid hour or so. However, one of my team had this happen, and it wasn't a wedding, it was a corporate party, Christmas party, and she handled it as best as she possibly could have, given the circumstances at the time. Gentleman had chest pains. He got up, he made it out to the parking lot of the venue. But then, of course, it drew attention, and it ended up really shutting the party down, honestly. But again, different type of scenario. Not someone's big day, celebratory, you know what I mean? Very much, not that, again, not that a wedding would take precedent over someone else's life. Of course it doesn't, you know, but different scenario still, right? Different type of event. And she handled it as best she possibly could. She tried to rally everyone together. She went to her POC and was very much, what would you like me to do? How can I serve you best? And she ended up playing background music and really until the party ended. But it was very somber note at that point in time, while everyone's thoughts were on the gentleman that had to leave because he was quite high up in the company. And unfortunately, this does not have a happy ending. He ended up passing. So yeah, but it's again, I applaud Dave for what he's done, and I think that's important. And I would also state this, I think, and I'd be remiss, I think, not to state it. Absolutely go get the training necessary. If you can, by all means do it. And maybe Dave, you can correct me. I don't know if I'd recommend anyone to try anything unless they've had the training. I would caution to that.
You can do more damage than good if you don't have the proper training.
Yeah,
because
I want to caution people, like,
yes,
you know,
yeah, but
got someone else in the house that can do it, and you don't know.
Granted, if you had your phone with you and you brought up YouTube, sure, there are YouTube videos, and listen, we are a YouTube generation. You know, it's now you can find YouTube tutorials on everything. Yeah. There are actually videos on this, you know, that'll tell you. But to have that training ahead of time is absolutely key. You know, because you have to find the right spot on the person's chest, mm-hmm, and keeping that pace. Like I said, the thing that always resonated with me is staying alive is the perfect BPM to, and the song because everybody can sing it. And what you're trying to do is keep that person alive. So it kind of drives you in what you're doing. And like I said, that's what worked for me for that event. But I had I not known CPR, I don't know what I would have panicked. I would have still, gone over and tried to do something. And you never know what you can do and what you were going to do when something like that happens. I would hope that I would, in that situation, try and look up a video because I am resourceful like that. I'm watching videos all the time on different subjects to try and learn little things, and like what we have tonight going on. Watching these things just to get a little nugget, because you can pick up things so easily from someone. Someone else we all look at things differently in the world, and that's what makes us all unique. And just because you or I may not agree on something, you may have a good point that, or a perspective that I didn't look at. You might have a nugget out there that I can use. So, it's, if you can, the classes aren't that expensive. You can go on your American Red Cross website, and I believe you can actually even write it off as a tax write-off. If I'm not 100% certain, but I'm pretty sure that you can. And it would be a good thing to do for your staff also, because in case you're not there, and one of your staff are, or God forbid, something happens to you, and you have an assistant or somebody with you, that can help you. So I would just ask that anybody that's out there, please try and get your staff and yourself certified. It's only a few hour course, and you could save someone's life.
And I think it's important for you, to recognize, because some of us are this was not necessarily the direction I ever thought that the show would go tonight. Nothing against it. I think this has been a great topic for us to hone in on. These guys are right. Having ourselves trained, and somebody's probably sitting there going, okay, really, like I've got to worry about mixing. I've got to worry about being an MC. I've got to worry about my planning. And now you're telling me I need to go get another course to worry about one more thing. And I think ideally Dave summed it up earlier when he said, I had that training. I never wanted to ever think I would use it, but it was one of those things to make sure that I had it. And I think it's important for us to kind of even just to keep that frame of mind with it as we go. And really, if you're involved in that aspect of it, what you're doing as a DJ and how you handle that moment as a DJ goes completely out the window, because nobody cares that the music is going. Nobody cares if there's anything, because they see what you're doing and you're
Nobody
helping.
cares you're a DJ. They're a human.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yes, exactly. I had a situation, and I've had this happen twice. I had a grandmother go down at a wedding one time. And that was kind of weird. Like, I didn't know, I was in that moment where I really didn't know what to do. I didn't, they were handling her, like they were taking care of her. She kind of really more of a fainted type of thing than anything else. She wasn't, whatever. She just kind of went down, and I pulled the music back and I played more background style, because that's what they kind of said. And exactly as Mitch said, you talk to your point of contact. That's, by the way, he keeps saying POC for those of you that are thinking like anything else. What is he talking about? Point of contact, just in case, just to clear that up. But that's what they said. The other one happened to me, not this past summer, but the summer before. Extremely hot day. I'm in a barn, of course. No air conditioning. And I have a father of the bride who insisted on wearing his suit coat all day. And this father of the bride also did not drink water, only drank beer of some sort. Was not drinking to the point of being drunk, but drinking only alcohol is a dehydrant and not a good situation for a day when it was 90 plus in a barn. And I didn't even know what was going on. It was one of those days, it was so hot that everybody was kind of milling about outside the barn doors. But I heard somebody said, "Hey, can we borrow your fan?" Like, because I'm one of the big box fans. Can we borrow your fan? You know, so-and-so's dad's not feeling so well. And I was like, absolutely. Here, take it, whatever. Next thing I know, it's like maybe 15, 20 minutes later, I watch an ambulance pull in. And that's when I went, oh no, like that escalated. And again, I wasn't really feeling anybody dancing because I'm like, well, everybody's milling outside. No, nobody was dancing because everybody was wondering what was going on with Dad and wanted to know what was happening with him.
Right.
A lot of doctors in the audience. The bride was a doctor, sister of the bride was a doctor. So they all like took care of him. And the sister of the bride went with him. And then when the ambulance went off, and they kind of knew, like they knew it was like a heat type of thing. They knew that's what it was, even though it could have been something else. They were pretty sure it was a heat thing. Came back in and said, okay, dad's taken care of. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. We're going to have this party because we're celebrating our wedding, which they had already had to postpone because of COVID. Like, we're not doing anything more. We're having our wedding, the rest of it. Dad's going to be okay. And I think that was the key, because then it also allowed the party to happen, right? I think that's one of the things we kind of wonder, like, what should we do? You know, in that moment, are we allowed to get back to having a good time? And that's where your point of contact, that's where your couple is going to make that decision. Because if they say, no, I can't put my mind on this. That was my uncle who just was down over there. That's why my mind's on, you know what? I love my wedding, but we just need to, I'm not going to be able to party. I'm not going to be able to party, like, you know, and us just kind of hanging out and drinking, maybe, but maybe we should just kind of end it for tonight. And you're going to have some couples that are going to want to do that. And that's going to be what's going to be the way that you decide how the night goes on.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be able to make that decision for it. You know, the announcers did not make the decision on what happened in that game. They kept the status quo going, informing, playing the part of keeping everybody, you know, to what's going on, but they did not make it the decision at the end of the night that says, we're not playing any more football tonight.
Watching it live and looking at the body language, I said to the people I was with that night a week ago, yet today, he's not putting his players back on the field.
Yeah.
You could read Sean McDermott's face, like, to me, his body language. I turned to it was Jamie Bodie, I'm pretty sure, who was next to me. And I said to Jamie, I said, they're not going back on the field. They're just not. Like, you read his body language, right? Study body language if you can as well. Hey, I'm not trying to throw another course at you, but
you got to do all these things, and you got to do them tomorrow, just so you know.
Yeah, knowing body language is key to a lot of things. Not, you know, it can help you with sales, it can help you with relationships, it can help you with a lot of things.
Very true.
Well, gentlemen, we are about out of time. So any last things that you want to throw out? Any last nuggets of gold that you feel we skipped over?
Lead with your heart.
Be human.
Awesome. Mitch, Dave, thank you so very much for taking on this. Like I said, this was going to be a heavy topic. We knew that, you know, kind of going in. You both treated it with the air of dignity that I expected, and I appreciate very much you taking time out of your night to join us. Those of you that watched us tonight, thank you very much for taking time. We saw some humor in the chat, but also some very appropriate comments as well. So thank you very much for those as well. Coming up next, Howie and the crew, DJNTV.com/chill. That is where you need to be. Those gentlemen will be doing about a 20-minute, gentlemen and ladies. Sorry, I forgot there are ladies that jump in there too. They are going to be tackling a topic. I have really no idea what the topic is tonight, but they do about 20 minutes. And then afterwards, they just go and they talk and have a good time and just kind of enjoy each other's company. So with that being Thank you very much, Robin, for dropping that in the chat as well. Again, djntv.com/chill. We will be back next week. Not these two guys, unless I can convince them some other way. I don't know. We'll see. No? Okay. It's worth a shot. But again, thank you very much. Have yourself a great night. We'll see you next time.